like Smyrna, it receives no criticism. It's one of only 2 out of the 7 receive nothing. Look at Revelation 3 and verse 13. He who has an ear to hear, he who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. I want to suggest to you that our role tonight is the same as when these letters were being circulated. Hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Take note of what is being said. And I want to begin with a little bit of historical background. One of the things I say a lot in sermons, I say it a lot in classes, when I do a little Bible drill with the children, I talk about real people in real places. And I think it's important that we understand the Bible is not set in some faraway land that, it's just made up. These are real places. And I always encourage people, when you're studying any passage, any book, any event involving cities and historical events, get as much background as you can. It will enrich your study. But I also realize that sometimes people may not have all these resources. Though today, if you've got a cell phone that's connected to the internet, it's amazing. You can just Google and learn a lot about different events. But if you don't have all this background, you can still learn so much. Where was Philadelphia? Well, like all the other churches of Asia, it was in this circular area. We think of Asia, great continent. It was a relatively small province in what we would today call the nation of Turkey. So, we've got a church that's in the region of Turkey. Here's a closer view of it, working our way clockwise, or you are, from starting with Ephesus and going around, and now we're at Philadelphia. And interestingly, the city of Philadelphia, historians tell us, was founded as somewhat of a missionary city. Now, not missionary in the sense of evangelizing for God. The Greeks had a very high, exalted view of their culture. They thought of their culture as superior to any other. And in the 2nd century, Philadelphia was founded. And its purpose, at least one of them, was to take the Greek culture a little farther inland, to spread it in among these uncivilized people. But then in the early 1st century AD, an earthquake devastated several cities in the region of Asia. And I'm talking just wipe these cities out. The buildings are leveled, and by this time, of course, the Greeks have given way to the Romans. And the Roman government had to help to rebuild these cities. And for a time, Philadelphia was called like Neo-Caesarean, the new Caesarea, named after Caesar. But the name Philadelphia went back to it. And one of the things I thought was interesting is I was reading about Philadelphia was it was said to be a lot like the city of Athens, Greece, just filled with idolatry. And yet, when we read the letter, and we're going to read it in just a second, you'll notice the only opposition he mentions comes from the synagogue. It's not from the idolaters. It's from the Jewish opposition. So let's read beginning in verse 7. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these things says he who is holy, he who is true, he who has the key of David, he who opens and no one shuts, and shuts and no one opens. I know your works. See, I have set before you an open door, and no one can shut it. For you have a little strength, have kept my word, and have not denied my name. Indeed, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan, who say they are Jews and are not, but lie. Indeed, I will make them come and worship before your feet, and to know that I have loved you, because you have kept my command to persevere. I also will keep you from the hour of trial, which shall come upon the whole world, to test those who dwell on the earth. Behold, I am coming quickly. Hold fast what you have, that no one may take your crown. He who overcomes, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go out no more. I will write on him the name of my God, the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God. And I will write on him my new name. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Now, I want to give you the overview in two statements. First of all, I want to remind you again, this is an unusual letter. He doesn't say, but I have this against you. But there's a problem. That's very unusual. He says to this group, and we'll talk more about this in a little bit, I think he's saying you have limited resources, but what you are is a persevering group. You hold the faith. You have stood strong, and I want you to keep standing strong. I entitled this, The Church with an Open Door. And I want us to think about the idea of that open door. Look at chapter 3 in verse 7. Look at how Jesus identifies himself. These things says he who is holy, he who is true, he who has the key of David, he who opens and no one shuts, and shuts and no one opens. For this Bible class, I'd probably take time to go to Isaiah 22. There's the origin of the part about the key of David, where he says, he who opens, no one shuts, shuts, no one opens. In Isaiah 22, there's a reference to a man named Eliakim who is given, he said, the key of David. And he would be over the household. And I believe this is in the time of Hezekiah. He would kind of manage things. And he was given the key, the symbol of authority, to control things. When Jesus says this, he says, I open it, nobody shuts it. I shut it, nobody closes it. Jesus is here asserting authority. And I think it's important sometimes for us to remember in our world that seems so topsy-turvy at times, so much is wrong. Jesus is always the one holding the key of David that can open and no one shut. That can shut and no one open. He's still